What's up everybody, and welcome to another mapping tutorial. This is tutorial number 3. We're going to start looking at actually making the map, and you can see here I've already kind of started a little bit, getting some of the roads laid in, and I got a little mountain over there, and I'm starting to put in some rocks, and I got this asphalt base here for our sawmill. And you saw last time we talked about importing objects. We got the sawmill in there. We talked about the painting on the texture, and we looked at what I call the stair step method of getting roads to go up very smoothly. So you can see there I've already put that in there and smoothed it out, and got another little switchback kind of thing going up the mountain over there. And so I think what we're going to do today is we're going to look at actually, kind of starting to add some detail, and we're going to look at a couple of different scripting things which we haven't really talked about yet, but we'll look at that today. Okay, so as we talked about, and just sort of a recap in the other videos, we looked at exporting things from another map and then importing them into our map. So let's look at kind of getting in some detail stuff here around the sawmill. Let's put in another building if I have one over here somewhere. I want to talk to you about also the scene graph over here. Let's see if I've got another. Yeah, we'll just put in this factory right here. We'll just stick that back over there somewhere. And it should already be at 90 degrees. Well, it's at 0, so we should be lined up with everything. Okay, good. All right. So we got our little factory building in here, but if you remember from previous videos, I talked about the scene graph and how you want to keep that pretty well organized. And I tend to just start adding stuff into my map and seeing what looks good and all that stuff, and I may go back later and delete some things, but I may keep them, whatever. So I have to kind of back myself up and say, hey, wait a second here, let's make at least a temporary folder to stick all this stuff in, so we don't make us a huge list of stuff over here in the scene graph, then we forget where everything is and what it's called and all that, and just make a big mess. So I like to keep things organized. You see I've got a transform group here called Sawmill Area. I've got a few things in there already. I've got the debarker hall, which is the sawmill itself, and then I've got this transform group that I created called Sawmill Deco, which is the little details like these little oil slicks. Maybe if we put a fire hydrant or some stacks of boards or something, just little details, decoration is what that stands for. So I think what I want to do is, you can get even more detailed and do like under the sawmill area, you could put like a buildings transform group and stick all your buildings in there, but I don't think I'm gonna get that fancy with this little tutorial. So I'm just gonna hit Control X and Control V to copy and paste or cut and paste that into just under the sawmill area. So now it's included with the sawmill area, just to kind of clean it up a little bit. And that's a good idea to get into, good habit to get into, and a good idea to do just to keep everything, if nothing else, just to keep yourself sane, because like I said, you'll forget what you added in there. You have a big long list of stuff, and then some of those things aren't named right and all that kind of stuff. So it's all kinds of things. Okay, so I've got another group here called rocks. I put in this little cliff, cliff 02. That's one of the things I exported out from Ravenport, I believe. So I was going to start to build kind of like a little cliff side over here, so that looked pretty cool. But in this video, let's do this. Let's say that we're ready to start putting our trees in. And now the first thing I like to do is I like to come over here into my texture thing, detail paint, whatever it's called, and I like to, when I've got a nice sharp edge like this that I use for my asphalt along the sawmill, I like to stick with that first, and I'll switch back to my round brush. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint in. Let's see if they have it in here. This forest needle one's I think's okay, but let's see. Yeah, this one doesn't have quite as much stuff as my 4x map. That's okay, we'll just pick one here. I'm just going to go Forest Needles 4, see what that looks like. Oops. Yeah, I don't know why they put like leaves in there. It says needles, not leaves. I don't know. Anyway, let's just try one of these. Doesn't really matter. You can use whatever you want. I'm just going to kind of paint this in here so we have a little bit of texture on the ground, because if you leave it grass and it's hard when you start putting the trees in there. It's kind of hard. Well, not really, but it's. This is just the way I like to do it. So, I'll just kind of paint all this in here. So this will be our tree area. We'll just fill this up with trees. Okay, so we got our texture. Now, what I was saying was that it's not really that hard to go back later and do that, because what we can do is, in fact, we're going to do it right now. Create a transform group. We're going to call it trees. Oops, do it over here. Trees. All right, so we got that. All right, so let's go ahead and import in a tree. And I want to show you one method of placing trees. Let's go Pine Stage 3. And then let's cut that and paste that into our trees transform group. And then let's Control B to put it right there. Okay, so let's pretend like we were going to do a plantation style, like on my map, the plantation. And they're just straight rows of trees. In fact, I'm going to move this over just a little bit so we can look at something here. Okay, so what you can do is, obviously you can, Control D, make a copy and move it, and that'll take forever. A quicker way of doing that is using what's called splines. And it's in the scripts. So you come down here, and I'll have links to this these scripts in this video description, and just look down there. It'll be on my website too, NLAgaming.com. I believe it's /FS19, and then I'm not sure where. I think it's under. Well, actually, no, not FS19. Let's put it under the map making section. So I think if you click on my website, if you click kind of up in the top right area, there should be a drop down for modding, I believe, and then anyway, I'll have the link in the description below. Alright, so first thing you have to do though is obviously when you download those, you'll have to come in here to the scripts, and you'll go down here to create new script, and then you'll just give it a name. I'm just going to call it splines. I don't know, it may do something here. Okay, so then I'm already in the script editor window, but here, let's go back through that again. Alright, so scripts, create a new script, and then we're going to call it splines until it create. It pops this up automatically with this splines we just made selected, and then I believe what you're going to do is copy paste from that file where I'll have the link to it. So here it is right here, this spline placement. Alright, so this is what it looks like, and you'll just copy all. So what I do is Control A, copies it all, and then just right click, copy, and then we'll come in here and paste. Control V, paste. Okay, so that's the actual execute. There's two more. There's a create and there's delete. Alright, so whenever you get them, this is the method. Just go through there, create a new one, and you can actually call it spline placement create, spline placement delete placed objects, and then there's the execute. I don't ever do this delete placed objects. Oops, well, we just messed it up. Oh, I've got them up here. In fact, I'm just going to delete that back. Yes, okay. Alright, so like I said, this delete here, I guess I've never used it. I guess it's supposed to delete in case you made a mistake or something, or want to redo it. I usually just, and I'll show you when we get down to it how I delete the accidentals and stuff. But anyway, that is there if you want to mess with it and try to figure it out. But the two I use is spline placement create and spline placement execute. The create actually makes the transform groups over here in the scene graph. The execute actually makes the trees go in a row or whatever you're trying to put in, and I'll show you. Okay, so we've got our tree over here that we want to use. We want to make some rows of trees over here in this area, in this little brown spot. Okay, so the first thing we have to do is we have to actually make the transform group where the splines are going to go. So we're going to go to create transform group, and then we're going to call it splines. Alright, so we got that. Now once that is highlighted, you come back up here to scripts and you go spline placement create, and it kind of, you won't really see anything if you don't have the console open, but you'll notice that there a little plus sign appeared now. So if we click on that, you can see we've got spline placement script or transform group, and then we got two more transform groups under that. The objects to place is where we're gonna put the tree, because we want to make copies of this tree, so that needs to go in here. And then the placed objects is going to be, once we do the execute of the script, it places the trees in this placed objects transform group, which is what I was saying, that once it places them in here, then you can just select them all and delete them if you have to. So that's how I do it. I don't use the other script back there, which you're welcome to if you want to. Okay, so next thing we need to do is we actually have to have a spline, and that script obviously just made these transform groups is all it did. It didn't make actual spline. So to do that, we have to go back up to create spline, and see it didn't stick it where we need it, which is under the splines transform group. It put it at the bottom, kind of like what it does with the transform group. It sticks them at the very bottom, which I think probably anything that you do in here is going to stick it at the very bottom of your scene graph. So we just need to come in here, select it, Control X to cut, Control V, and we'll stick it right in there. Okay, so now what this does is, again, you know, just like when you import something, it sticks it way off in some crazy place, probably 0, I would guess. Yeah, right in the middle of the map. Yeah. Okay, so we want it over here, so we can start making rows of trees. So again, Control B, and it puts it right there. Okay, so what we have here is just, it kind of looks like almost like a transform group, but if we click off of it, you can see it's a little line. It's got two blue squares at each end, or one blue square at each end, and then there's, you can't really see, but there's one in the middle too. Alright, so yeah, there it goes. You can kind of see the red dot there in the middle, or red square. Okay, so we're going to click on the spline itself, and then now to edit this, you have to click on the very end on one of these little blue, because, alright, so just to back up, the S is start and the E is end. So we want to start here and end it way down here at this side of the brown spot. So I'm going to click on the little blue square, and for the E, and you'll see that it changes to a the red, green, blue little deal. So we can adjust it, so we can move it, see, like that. Now a quicker way of doing it is just like we did with everything else that we want to place fast, is Control B as in boy, and then we can, you know, kind of say where we want to put it right there. Okay, now this one in the middle, what that does is, if you want it to be sort of on a curve, so you can move it out like that. And it gets a little tricky using these splines when you're talking about curves, because I don't know, they just get a little bit weird, and you'll kind of understand when you start messing with them some. But we're just going to do straight rows of trees. We could actually delete that if we wanted to, but I'm just going to leave it right there. And let's see here. I'll make sure this thing is straight. I don't think it is. Okay, now one other little trick you can do is, you see how we've got the one in the middle selected. Let's say we wanted to manipulate the E, the end. You can use your left and right arrows on the keyboard to move which one's selected. See? Okay, so we want that one. I'm just going to move that over just a little bit, and then we're going to come back and move that one over just a little bit, kind of line. It's not perfect. It's still not straight, but it's okay. Alright, so now we're ready to start putting our trees in here. And I'm going to select this Pine Stage 3, and I'm just gonna make a copy of it. So Control C, and then under the objects to place, I'm gonna Control V to paste it in there. All right, so we've got our pine stage 3 is what we want to place on this spline. Now we need to look at the actual script itself. So we're going to go here to Window and Script Editor, and then Spline Placement Create. Well, actually, that's where you make the spline, or the transform groups for the spline. So Spline Placement Execute is what we want to look at. Yep, that's right. Okay, so here's where it starts to get another little bit of a tricky kind of thing, and they've got some descriptions out here that kind of tells you a little bit what this stuff does. I think some of it's in German, but okay. So first of all, this first one, this row number 9 right here, the object distance, that is the distance between objects. Okay, so we've got pine stage 3, and so let's put in a 6 there and see what happens. That's I believe that's 6 meters apart. Okay, so then the next one here is no object at start, which means that right here at this first little blue dot, if you have true there, it's not going to put one. It's going to skip it, and it's going to go 6 meters over this way. We don't want that. We want to actually have it a tree at the very start, so we're going to make that false. Stay upright. Object stay upright. You know, it's been so long since I've messed with some of this. I'm just going to put true in there. Use distance table. I would not even look at that one. And then all this stuff down here, random order, some of this random stuff you don't have to worry about too much. Random placement. See, I've got all this stuff turned to false right now. That's by default is false. What I'm looking for is random Y rotation, and I want to make that true. So remember we talked about when you did the Control B, and then you can use the shift, you know, to put them all at the same rotation. Well, we don't want that because it doesn't look natural. So this random Y rotation, if you set that to true, whenever it places the trees, every tree's got a different little rotation to it, so it looks a little different. It's not all uniform. Okay, so then the last two down here, this row 30 and 31, these two right here, align with terrain, leave that to true, and not at terrain 0, which means terrain 0 is, you know, absolute bottom. So and usually there's water there or something, so just leave that to true as well. And I don't think you have to mess with anything down here. See, this is all how the script's telling the game to make it work or whatever. So all you have to really fool with is this up here. Mostly just the object distance, no object at start, stay upright, and then you skip down to random Y rotation. Now this one here, this row 21, if you're placing roads, you may have to alter that to 0. It seems like whenever I place roads, I'll usually have to manipulate that, I believe. We're doing trees, so it's not going to matter. Okay, so we've got the script set up like we need it to. Now hit save. All right, so that saves everything. Now we should be ready to go. We've got our spline placement, transform groups all set up. We've got our pine stage 3 in the objects to place. We've got our spline. It is at the start where we want it and at the end where we want it. So I believe now it's all that's left to do is hit execute, and I'm going to move this off to the side so you can see me hit the button, and you'll see what happens. Hopefully everything goes as according to plan. Alright, so nothing happened. Okay, so what you have to do, and again, it's been a while for me, and this is also a good learning experience for you guys. So you notice down here in the console, this last row I just clicked on execute, nothing happened, but it gave me an error message that says please select spline placement transform group. So I forgot that I have to click that right there, not the pine stage 3. So click on spline placement. Now we should be able to click the execute button, and it should place the trees at random rotations. It may take a second depending on your system. Spline. Oh, okay. So one more thing. It says spline not present. So I have to put it under this spline placement, I would imagine. All right. So we'll just do Control X, Control V. Now it's under this spline placement right here. Now we should be able to hit execute and it work. There we go. Okay. So we got our trees in there. You can kind of tell just by looking there at different rotations, because you can see all the little planes or whatever. They're all at different directions and stuff. So if you click off of there somewhere, now we've got our little rows of trees all at 6 meters. And then now here's where it gets a lot of fun, because then you can create some trees in a hurry. In fact, I'm just gonna delete that. Okay. All right, and what I mean by that is we can come back over here to our spline, and we can, let's see, what is the best method of doing that? Yeah, okay. I was thinking I would have to, it was going to move just that one. Okay, so when you click on just the spline transform group and not one of the ends, it does move the whole line over. So we can move it over, you know, a little ways, and then all we got to do is click on spline placement, hit execute once again, and it should place the trees. Oh, it's not. There's no. Oh, I deleted the tree. Okay, so we're going to click on Pine Stage 3, copy, paste. No wonder. And now we're going to click on spline placement and execute. And there we go. So we just made 2 rows of trees. It would have been a little quicker if I hadn't deleted the object to place tree. But anyway, so now from what I can do here is see, we've got our placed objects. And so if I click on that, we've got all of our trees we just placed. And what I like to do at this point is we've got a transform group just hanging out over here called trees. And so what I like to do is I like to click on under the placed objects and move them out away from there. So I'm just highlighting them all by hitting shift at the very I click on the first one, and at the very bottom click shift and click the bottom one, and then I'm gonna Control X and Control V, and then we got our rows of trees there. So that's how you do rows of trees really quickly. Now I've got another script I want to show you, and we're going to come over. Let's see. Let's go right in this area right here. Now this is going to take just a bit of setup, so hang with me just for a second. In fact, I'm going to delete all of these. In fact, no, I'm not going to. Let's just rename that to Trees 1. I'm going to make a new transform group called Trees. Okay. Alright, now again we've got our little script window, but this time I'm going to come over here to this trees replicator. Now this is a script by Catalyzer Gaming. You can see right there, Catalyzer Gaming, and I'll have a link to this script in the description below. It's going to be on his Discord channel, so if you don't Discord, I don't know, I guess contact him on YouTube and see if he'll send it to you. He told me to make sure that I'll link it to the pinned message on his Discord channel, so that's where that's going to be. Okay, so how this script works is, in fact, I have to do one more thing really quickly. So I have a transform group called Trees, and under here I'm going to make another transform group called, let's call it Pine Stage 3. And then we're going to make another one. Pine Stage 4. And then finally one more. Pine Stage 5. Okay. So we got those 3. Let's cut those and paste them into the trees folder. I'm going to show you how to make trees of different sizes. We got pine stage 3, stage 4, stage 5, and we can place them all at once. How awesome is that? Alright, so check this out. Okay, so first thing we need to do is let's go in here, import. We're going to need a pine stage 4, and we're going to cut that and paste that in pine stage 4. We've already got a pine stage 3 right here, so I'm going to copy that, paste it into pine stage 3. We need a pine stage 5, so let's import that. And then let's cut that and paste it in pine stage 5. Okay, so the reason why I'm doing this is you have to have different transform groups under this trees. And what I mean by that is when you look at the script right here on this line number 12, right here where it says top level transform name equals trees, that's what I named it, because that is what this transform group right here is called. Just trees, you know, no capitals, no underscores, nothing, just trees. Okay, now there's some other stuff that I don't really use with this script, because you can set it to restrict the paint, and what that means is he's got some descriptions out here what that means, but it says only plant trees on rough or dirt rough, dirt light, and some of these other ones. I didn't really find it to work too well for me, so I just set it to false so it doesn't even worry about that. And really the only thing you have to worry about is what is this top level transform name, because it's going to be something different whenever you download his script. It's going to say something different right here, so you got to change line number 12. You can set this to true so it doesn't place trees in the water. We don't have any water yet on this map, so I'm not going to worry about that. This local WY equals 1 is the lowest. Well, that's the water level, so it would be the lowest point on your map that you don't want it to place trees or whatever. And then the tree radius size is, okay, so whenever you put a tree down, you know, it's the radius out from that center point of that tree. So right now I've got it set on 20. You can go up to, I don't know, no telling how high. It just depends on if Giants is going to like it and not crash or something. But I usually set it around, depends on what I'm doing, anywhere from 20 to 100. You know, it just really depends. I probably wouldn't go over 100 unless you got a pretty decent computer. But I don't know. It just depends on if Giants likes it and doesn't crash on you. The tree distance is the spacing between the trees. So it randomly places trees, but the minimum distance it's going to put is whatever you have here. So in this case we're going to do 6, and then we've already talked about the local restrict paint. All this stuff down here you don't have to worry about, so don't even mess with that. Okay, so once you get everything set like you want it, hit save. It saves the script, and then now what we have to do is we have to pick one out of each of these pines. Now if you just wanted pine stage 3, you just click that one, and we're going to do Control B, and let's stick it right there and see. Then we could run the script as it is, and it's going to place no telling us how many hundreds of pine stage 3s in this little area, depending on, you know, what size scale you've got set. Mine's on 20, so it's not going to be very big. In fact, let's just do it. Okay, so I've only got pine stage 3 selected. We've got our tree radius size set at 20. It's not very big, and then the tree distance between trees set at 6. Alright, so I'm going to hit execute, and again I'm going to move this over here so you can see it happen. It's pretty quick, you know. Alright, so there we go. We got I guess that's 20 meters apart radius, and then it placed randomly placed trees about 6 meters apart. So that's how that did. And then you can see it stuck them under this pine stage 3 because that's where we had it selected. Alright, so I'm going to actually undo that. I guess well, actually no, you can't. When you run a script, you can't really use the unbutton too well. That's why the others, that spline placement had that delete script in there, which I don't use. I just select them and delete them. Okay, so now we got back to our one single pine stage 3, In fact, I'm going to bump that radius up just a little bit because we're about to put in some other trees here. So let's go 50. We'll leave it at 6. Save. Okay. Now, if you want to have multiple size trees placed all at once, what you have to do is we have to come back in here under trees. We've already got a pine stage 3. It's right there. So we need a pine stage 4. And so let's move that over here, and we're going to grab a pine stage 5 and stick that in there. Okay, so we got 3 different size trees. And the way this works is we're going to use, let's use the tall tree as our base. So we're going to use the translate x, which is -701 and whatever. So we're going to copy that, and we're going to grab this little small tree, and we're going to paste the x in there. So now it's on the same x coordinate, and we're going to do the same thing with the pine stage 4. Alright, and it doesn't matter if it's up in the air or whatever, just it needs to be just all the x's and all the z's need to be the same. So now we're going to click on our big pine stage 5 again. We're going to grab the z value, and we're going to let's go with this one first, and we're going to paste in that in the x, or the z, excuse me, the z. Paste. Okay, so now they're pretty much on top of each other. And I need to do the same thing on this little small tree. So paste in the z value. Now they're all on top of each other. And the reason you do that is so that the randomness is better. Catalyzer Gaming was saying that when he was doing some testing, that if the trees were pretty far apart, it tended to skew more towards one tree or the other. So by putting them all on basically the same spot, it better randomizes the tree placement. So, okay, so now what you have to do, which it gets a little tricky when you start adding a bunch of trees, but you have to select them all. Alright, so we've already got the pine stage 3 selected, so we can come over here in the scene graph, at least at the start, and just hold down the control button in pine stage 4 and stage 5. So we got them all selected now. In fact, I want to go back through that again just to make sure I've got them all. Okay, so that's what it's supposed to look like. Okay, so one will be green, the other two be white. Okay, Giants editor gets a little screwy sometimes with when you're selecting things in there, but you just have to be careful. Okay, so we've bumped our radius up a little bit. We got up to 50. We still got a random placement distance of 6. Alright, so what we're going to do now is we got these 3 all selected. They're different sizes. We're going to hit execute. We've already hit save, so we're going to execute and watch what happens. Boom, it sticks a bunch of trees in there very quickly. Now I don't like these little fluted bottoms. They don't fit well on the ground, but the spruce work better. Okay, so now the first thing you need to do before you do anything is either move these trees, or what I do is just, while they're still selected, I just hit the delete button. I mean, you can do whatever you want to do, but so you see we've got pretty much the whole hillside of trees now very quickly. So that's sort of a I don't know, sort of a hidden weapon there when you're making maps and stuff, especially logging maps, because tree placement's the worst when you're doing it by hand. But you can see some of these are in the road, and what I usually do is I'll just select them and Control B and move them over, or you can just hit the delete button and get rid of them totally, but just up to you. And again, like I said, that little part of the script that he had where you can tell it to not paint on certain things, I think I remember him saying that it only works on like certain colors and stuff. It doesn't really work too well with like the name of the actual texture. But again, you can hop over to Catalyzer Gaming's Discord channel and chat with him over there about it. But anyway, that's how I place my trees very quickly like that. You can see we've got pretty randomized different sized trees all in there. And also you can do, like I said, just select one of these, like say for instance pine stage 5. You can make a whole grove of nothing but pine stage 5s. But that's really cool. That script right there saves me a lot of time. And then what I like to do is a final sort of, well, actually I do it before this, but I kind of got carried away. But what I like to do at this point is to come over here to my foliage layer painting and come down here to this foliage layer painting, select grass. I usually do the green small, and I'll just paint in the grass like that. And we'll just come down here by the road, paint all that grass in, and then I'll come over here and select bush 01, and I usually go with like stage 2. I'll pop in some bushes. You can see we're kind of quickly starting to build our little map here. But yeah, that's how I do it. And then on these sides of the roads like this, what I like to do is either use the real rocks from that I exported from Ravenport or something, or I might do, let's see, mountain rock, dark, and just paint in some rock. And you can come back and just all, you know, they say the devil's in the details. Well, that's pretty true on stuff like this, because I mean, you can get carried away with all the little details. I guess it helps to actually pick a grass. Then you got this deco foliage. It's pretty cool. They got some cool stuff in here. Let's see. I'm trying to think of what some of this stuff is called. I think it's that one. You know, just you can add some little details and stuff in there, but that's all up to you. But anyway, I think next time we come back, we're going to probably be looking at finishing up our map as far as like placing stuff and getting like the sell points and stuff in there. We'll put a little gas station or a gas pump or something, and then we'll look at the lights. The lights are pretty easy. In fact, let's just real quick, let's get a light in here. If I've got one, I guess, okay, I didn't put one in there. Okay, we'll do that next time. But and then probably next time also we're going to look at putting water in here. We'll make us a little pond or something, maybe over here in this section or something. But I've got to study up on the water, because I have not had much luck with getting the water to act right. In fact, if you played my maps, usually you can just drive under the water, but there's ways of doing it, and I'll see if I can't get all that figured out by next time. But anyway, so we looked at doing the splines to make straight lines of trees if you want to do like a plantation style, and then we looked at the script to use to randomly place trees very quickly. Yeah, and so then next time, like I said, we'll look at finishing up our little sawmill area, adding some detail, and getting our sell points and our gas pump thing working. And I think that'll just about get us. The final things we'll be looking at probably in video number 5 will be kind of how we wrap up the map, you know, getting everything exported out, and then of course the PDA and all the splash screens and stuff and all that. We'll look at all that in the final video. But anyway, hope you enjoyed this, and thanks for watching.